There we go. That's all right. Start sharing my screen. I'm still waiting. A lot of people came in person. I'm excited. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. I love it. I believe you. Most of my time here, we did a lot of virtual. It's nice. Yeah, and the last hazard mitigation plan update was finalized in 2023, so almost all the meetings were virtual. Yeah, so it's different. It's good. Yeah.
Feels like it was just a long time ago.
Whenever I get memories from that time, it's like weirdly seems, yeah, like not far in the past, but so long. Okay, there we go. We got Lee. That's wonderful. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I just want to do a sound check for the people that are online. Could you just give me a thumbs up if you can hear us? Oh, great. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. I think we still have 3 minutes, but I thought we could just go around and do a round of introductions, where we work, our position. I'll get started. I'm Isabella O'Brien, a planner 2 with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission.
I'm Ethan Van Berkel. I'm the intern here in the office at the TJPDC. I'm just watching things today.
I'm Jeremy Evans. I'm the emergency management coordinator for the city.
Dan Shannon with UVA Facilities Management. I'm a systems control manager and the continuity of operations.
Emily Felicia with Elmore County Fire Rescue.
Gabriel Rosada. I'm a climate program specialist in the city.
Hi, my name's Emily Urban, and I am the city's climate program manager. Crystal Rittervall, director of the Office of Sustainability.
Hey folks, Steve Daly, climate program manager with Albemarle County.
Lisa Carstensen, emergency management with the county.
Hi, good morning, John O'Brandy with Albemarle County Fire Rescue, Emergency Management.
Hi, good morning. My name is Brandon Carter with Albemarle County Fire Rescue, and I'm the data analyst and a GIS.
Thank you. So that's everyone in the room. For the people, oh, sorry, you just walked
You
in.
guys start really promptly, by the way. Greg Harper, Environmental Services Chief.
Great, thank you. I know I'm a few minutes early. I just thought as people are coming in, we could start with some introductions. For the people online, if we're just going through a round of introductions, if you could just share your name and position.
Good morning, everybody. John Da Silva, Director of Emergency Management for the University of Virginia.
Peter Hummon, I'm the All Hazards Planner for VDEM Region 3.
John Adkins, Director of Emergency Services for Nelson County.
Good morning. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Good morning. It's Melissa Metter. I'm the Director of Emergency Services and the EMS Chief for Greene County.
Good morning.
Rick
My name is
Youngblood.
Sorry, I just called you out. Apologies. How about Lee?
Good morning. I'm Lee Chapman. I'm with Salters Creek Consulting. I'm working on the state hazard mitigation plan and wanted to get some feedback from you all toward the end of the meeting. So thanks for having me.
And Rick?
Rick Youngblood, District Planning Manager, VDOT, Lynchburg District.
Great, thank you. I think that's everyone, and now we are right at 10. Thank you all for joining us today. We're here to just do an annual review as part of the requirements for the hazard mitigation plan. And apologies, Lee, but I actually have you first on the agenda. We thought we could just go through VDEM's end of things and then dive into our local mitigation actions and updates to critical facilities. So if you wouldn't mind explaining the work that you're doing to support VDEM and how our local stakeholders can support you.
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Lee Chapman, working on the State Hazard Mitigation Plan, and I'm meeting with each of the planning district commissions that are doing hazard mitigation plans in this particular update to the state plan. One of the main purposes for doing that is the state plan this go round is going to be an enhanced plan. Well, we hope it's going to be approved as an enhanced plan through FEMA's enhanced plan process. And that would open up some more money for hazard mitigation planning in the state, kind of lower the local match. So we're excited to pursue that. One of the requirements of an enhanced state plan is that there be particularly good integration of local plans with the state plan. But there's very little definition as to what that integration actually means. So one of the ways we're doing that is reaching down into the local plans and, number one, talking to all the PDCs to sort of find out what the pros and cons are about the way we currently manage both the planning grants and the project grants, but then also trying to figure out some of the local mitigation actions that would be appropriate to have in the state plan. And there might be several reasons for that. One that comes to mind most readily is that some local mitigation actions actually have state partners listed as leaders on the particular action. For instance, I see a lot of actions that have VDOT as the project lead. Well, my first question that comes to mind with those is, does VDOT even know that they're listed as a project lead on a local mitigation action in a local plan? So the attempt to do this is, number one, to shine some sort of light on some of these local actions that might need state input or state assistance. But then also just to make sure that the state is sort of seeing what's going on at the local level and getting some feedback from the PDCs outside of the actual planning process. So this is sort of external to your actual planning process. So I'm excited about this. I've gone to 11 different PDCs so far. I've met with Isabella what was it, 2 weeks ago or last week? And gotten some skinny from her on sort of what's working, what's not working. And I would love to hear some more feedback from you all. I'll try to structure the questions a little bit. I'm a little, I was behind. I thought I was going to have the whole meeting to put this together. That's okay. Let me see if I can do this on the fly. So I think my first question is the most obvious. Are there mitigation actions that come to mind that you have in your existing plan? Hopefully you've kind of had a chance over the last week or so, knowing about this meeting, to take a look at those mitigation actions. Are there any that come to mind as being particularly relevant to the state hazard mitigation plan? In other words, they might need to be implemented by a state agency. They need to be headed up by a state agency. I'm not looking for actions that just require state grant assistance. I'm looking for a little bit more meat on the bones here. So a little bit more actions that maybe address a state asset or a state building. Particularly, I'm interested in actions that address critical facilities. So if you've got an EOC that's in the floodplain and gets regularly flooded. I live in Hampton, Virginia. We had that problem. We had a downtown emergency operations center and it was getting regularly flooded. And so a mitigation action in our plan for a long time was to move that EOC. That is of interest to the state because the state wants the communities to be able to effectively administer emergencies. So those are some examples. I'll open the floor to you all. Are there a few actions in your existing plan that you think rise to the level of the state plan?
One one that jumped out to me the most in our section of the mitigation plan for Albemarle County was the upgrading existing bridges to support emergency vehicles, because that would be VDOT's. Obviously, there's involved VDOT. And
Okay.
there's also, right above that, we've got an action, build or repair bridges so as to not minimize impacts. So as not to minimize impacts to floodways.
And I think when we had spoken, Lee, you had mentioned that having those specific project locations identified for the actions that would be bumped up to the state plan was kind of pertinent.
Yes, good point, Isabella. The more specific, the better. I did see that one in Albemarle County. I think the one I'm more interested of those two is not about future bridges, but more about existing bridges. If you have existing bridges that are problematic, yeah, let's get those on the list as a state plan action. I think the future bridges, that's more relevant to your own regulations and rules for how you build those bridges. Although, of course, there are VDOT bridges, but are there specific locations of bridges that you know of?
There are, I'd have to get them to you, but we have them all listed in our CAD system for dispatching and apparatus.
Okay, I'd say if
Saying build or repair roadway and bridge pedestrian crossings so as not to impede floodwaters. But I don't have the specific locations right now.
Okay. Okay, well, I can certainly describe it as an existing issue. If you go back to your office and you can grab a few specific instances or specific bridges that are problematic, that always helps drive the point home, and I think makes a stronger mitigation action if we can point to actual locations. But those are good ones. I will mention those.
Hi, Lee, Melissa from Greene County. We have that same issue, so I can forward certain locations to you as well. We also have in our plan about adding signage to frequently flooded areas and low-lying areas.
Yep.
Is that something that you could take a look at as well?
I think I already pulled that out for you guys. Let me see what I've
Okay.
got. I've got, no, I didn't. I had structural evaluation of current shelters, dry hydrants, and a drought management plan.
Okay.
But I will put high water signage. Are those other ones of interest, Melissa? Structural evaluation of current shelters, dry hydrants, and drought management plan? I thought the drought management plan in particular might be something you could work on with some state partners.
Yeah. We've just, well, let me see. Is Jim, are you on here? Jim Friedel?
I am.
Okay. We don't have anything with the actual drought mitigation plan yet, do we?
No. So yeah, we could always use help. We get all of our water from the sky or a tiny little river. We have no storage. So we would need a lot of assistance either from the state and federal government or from a higher power to get any help.
So not just in preparing the plan, but in actually executing any actions within a drought management plan would require outside assistance.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it. All right, I'll put an asterisk next to that one. Albemarle County, these are just a few that I looked through the plan and pulled them out. I had drought monitoring, a backup EOC for wildfire. I had dry hydrants and fire breaks. And then for some reason, I put an asterisk next to that, very important to UVA. I had outdoor warning sirens for public use facilities and flood warning system. The flood warning system one, and this kind of goes out to everybody on the call. If you've got specific flood warning system elements or requirements or components, let me know those. What I foresee here is one big giant flood warning system mitigation action at the state level that will include some details about specific components requested in local mitigation plans. So again, the devil's in the details. If you've got some specific components that you'd like to add to the state plan, send me those. Send those my way. Do any of those other ones resonate?
Yes, I think for me, what might be an interesting question is how specific a solution we may have ready.
I foresee this as one big mitigation action with a list of potential locations. So you don't have to have specific cross section of a river for a component, maybe just the river name, or Albemarle County and hyphen these 3 tributaries of the such and such river. I think more details better, but I hear you. If we get too far into the weeds, it's going to be too much detail to be useful.
But we definitely have several rivers that have recently been problems that we've talked about, different mitigation efforts, including warning systems, public warning systems. One of which involves the city and Ravenna water and sewer at a dam location here. So yeah, I think if that's the kind of thing that could be included, I would think that we would all be like.
Okay, yeah, maybe if you all can give me a little paragraph on that or a few sentences, we can put that into the state plan.
Something else that comes to mind for me, this is Greg Harper from Albemarle County, is maintenance and repair of drainage infrastructure. We have a new program in the urban areas of the county that involves VDOT a lot, because drainage systems, may start on private property or county property, but they often go under VDOT roadways.
Right.
And their interest in maintenance and repairs is a lot different than our interest. And we've even pointed out what we feel like are issues to VDOT and have basically gotten a response that it's not threatening our road. So we're gonna wait until it fails or until it does threaten the road. So just more, I feel like VDOT would need to kind of up its game as far as coordination with local governments on that sort of thing. Since the drainage infrastructure is so ubiquitous and crosses in and out of VDOT rights of way.
Okay. I hear this one a lot. I think what I've got to do is meet with the VDOT resilience coordinators and sort of get a game plan with VDOT for what their action might look like in this regard statewide. You're not the only one to say that, so.
Good to know.
A question, and I'm out of my element here, so maybe Greg, you might have a better perspective on this, but is there something that could be included relative to the private high hazard dams that we have and mitigation efforts at the state level to support that or something? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, this one showed up quite a bit in your whole plan. I think this is another one that's gonna get a lot of feedback. This is another one that's gonna come up as a state high hazard dam action. And I think that's gonna be coordinating with private landowner or private dam owners. I know that DCR has a big project going in this regard. It's a little behind schedule because they were understaffed. I think they've staffed back up and they've got it rolling again as far as inundation areas and making sure that high hazard dam inundation areas are getting digitized. So I know that is happening, but a little slower than they had wanted initially. So are you talking specifically about inundation area mapping, or are you talking more about, oh, I remember what you all had. A lot of you guys had flood protection in those inundation zones. And so that's kind of an ordinance issue that I think we can point to a partnership with DCR and making sure that DCR prepares ordinance requirements or what do I want to say, template or model ordinance requirements for flood protection in dam inundation zones. That goes hand in hand with having mapped inundation zones. You can't really regulate inundation zones if you don't have them mapped. So so that's, I think this is probably two-pronged, and I'm going to shut up here for a second and let you guys tell me what the issue is. But I'm from my read of the hazard mitigation plan, it looked like there were two issues. One was rehabbing and removing private dams that are high hazard and probably poor condition. And the other is ordinance or flood protection within inundation zones. Am I way off base on that?
Yeah, I think those are good points, and I would add to those the fact that DCR I know is trying to do good, but is struggling with a lot of non-compliance with private dam owners, like with high hazard dams. So there's not much that is known about the dams, like the inundation zones are unknown. The true hazard classification is really unknown. So, I mean, I can't blame DCR because they're doing probably as best they can, but we're in a situation as a local government where we have a lot of high hazard private dams that are regulated by the state, and there's just like no compliance. And so we feel, I guess, kind of helpless to do much because we are aware that there's a lot of risk out there, and there's nothing we can do. We have been trying to do some outreach ourselves just to provide assistance, in knowing what the rules are, kind of like offering to do kind of like a cursory dam evaluation, that sort of thing, just to kind of increase the amount of knowledge we have on these dams. But it's just, I feel like it's an issue that's just waiting for the storm to, to reveal the fact that, there's this unknown risks out there that are just going to become known only through something horrible.
Yeah, and I know that happened in 2015 in South Carolina, and it was really unfortunate. And that's exactly what happened. There were a lot of dams that a lot of information was missing. And suddenly they found out very quickly and harshly what the 500-year flood was. There are, I don't know if you all are aware of the HHPD, the High Hazard Potential Dam Grant Program that FEMA has put together here recently. That may have some possibility for funding some of these investigations into what are perceived as high hazard dams. So let's, I've got you on that. It's almost three-pronged. So it's not really rehabbing these dams. It's first finding out, gathering information and finding out condition, finding out true hazard potential, and then deciding what the mitigation actions might be.
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely on the dams. Again, if you've got specific locations you can send me, even one or two, I think helps make the point. Just helps describe the problem a little bit better. Shall I go through a few more of these actions that I pulled out from the existing plan real quick?
I don't know if there was another question that you wanted to cover with everyone. I was just thinking we would close out your portion of the agenda at 10:30. So you've got 11 minutes left.
Okay. I think this is probably the most important thing is sort of gathering this sort of feedback from you all. I think for Charlottesville, I've got training building inspectors and code officials on mitigation techniques. So this is something that, hazard mitigation best practices, workshops, that kind of thing on a regular basis. I hear that loud and clear. I'm hearing it in other plans as well, but I'll definitely list Charlottesville in that regard. Updating floodplain regulations. I saw this in a couple of the communities for this plan was updating the flood regulations. I know a lot of the floodplain ordinances throughout the state are from 2006, 2009. So I think it would be a good thing for DCR to start putting together a new model ordinance that's tied to the statewide building code, so that those two work together more successfully.
Can I ask you a question on that? I know DCR is also doing an update to the statewide flood master plan. And it seems like an ordinance and the consideration of flooding outside of the coastal area is kind of where we all have interests, right? That we just were at a presentation yesterday where they talked about the coastal flood resilience plan. But I think we need to understand what are all the components of flood risk inland.
And I think the second phase, excuse me, I think the second phase of the plan is addressing inland.
I think so, yeah. And I think they also on their website say there's supposed to be a Virginia flood protection master plan to be completed and released to the public no later than December 2025.
Yeah, this is going to be really fast, but they're studying the inland flood issues and preparing a plan for that. I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't know a whole lot about it, but my understanding is that's the next phase is inland flood issues. But I'm hearing you, like, not just if they do an update of the flood ordinance, that it needs to be comprehensive so that they're addressing those inland flood hazards as well.
Right, and I mean, I think it ties to what Greg was saying about the flood ordinance, you know, any kind of inundation, any type of infrastructure maintenance, like all of that is going to be same but unique and different in an inland setting. And so the roles and responsibilities, whether that's the locality or VDOT, I mean, that should all be part of the flood master plan.
Oh, I got you. Tying it to, oh goodness, I'm losing my voice. State regulations as well.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Well, and not just the environmental impact, but I would say, like, the fleet sheltering plan has impacted all the other downstream, no pun intended, impacts from that.
Yeah, I think that's what this second phase of the plan is doing. All right, let's see. For Charlottesville, I also had retrofit emergency services buildings. Can anybody add any specificity to that?
I cannot, I don't think any of ours were in a floodplain. If I understand the question correctly. Well, no.
I didn't quite get that comment.
This wasn't specific to flood, was it?
No, this was just writ large.
I think it was.
Do you have any, like, resilience component? Is there any risk to the
Yeah, there's
always.
facilities not being up and running? I think that was the intent, was to make sure that whatever emergency services facilities that we have there or needs, that those were addressed as part of hazard mitigation.
I think there were some general needs.
Yeah, but I can't remember. I don't know. I feel like.
Okay. Well, let me move on to Fluvanna. Is there some?
I have one more Charlottesville one that might be a question here, but the community CERT training, community emergency response team classes, is that something that can be provided by the state to communities? Is that another training related need opportunity?
I can find out. I don't know. I mean, I know what CERT teams are. And I know the purpose. I don't know whether VDM provides training or not. I'll have to do a little more digging on that.
So the train-the-trainer class is through FEMA. I don't think Virginia is doing that training right now. I think that kind of went by the wayside. I do know, in speaking with Sonny Saxton, that when his new person is on board, he's going to be in charge of the new CERT, the regional CERT, if I understand correctly. So that may be, we may be implementing the regional CERT team.
I think we have Sunny on the call and Peter Human from BDM, if you guys can speak to that at all.
Yeah, this is Sunny, and Jeremy just said it well already. So I would echo that program will. So I would leave it as an after or as an action item, and we should be able to button that down pretty quick.
Hey, this is Peter on a previous comment. As far as the CERT stuff goes from VDEM, I do not believe we have a current filled position for a CERT trainer, if you will. However, there are CERT trainers throughout the state, and they could go out to those individual localities or regions or PDCs if that's how you guys are set up for that, and they could train specifically to that. And there's I can look up the process for additional instructors to get certified in that if that's of interest to somebody.
And hey, this is Todd Fortune of Savannah County. Just to add for what it's worth. I'm actually been on the job a month. My previous position was with Planning District 14 down in Farmville. And we had quite a few trainings, and we would use Kent Emerson, who is Muley County's emergency management coordinator. And he's very qualified to do trainings like that. I don't know if you have someone in this region who would follow along those lines as well.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay. All right, let me just roll through a few more of these for Fluvanna. I've got tabletop exercise for damage assessment, in-house training for BMPs for hazard mitigation and preparedness, training on post-event inspection prioritization. That kind of seemed like a VDEM training opportunity, perhaps. IDing repetitive loss properties. That sounds like something through maybe crisis track. Might be an opportunity there. And then I've got evacuation plans for Charlottesville area dam breaches. So I think that one feeds into what we talked about previously with the dam safety. And then FLM3 was adopt fire code. Do we have any insight as to what that was about?
This is Debbie Smith, the Emergency Management Coordinator. We've tried with adopting fire codes several times over the years, and there's just pushback on it. So it's always on the radar, but
specifically with regard to wildfire, like breaks around houses, that kind of thing?
no, more of fireworks and
Okay,
burn barrels and stuff like that.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, but it doesn't sound like that's really not a state thing. Okay.
No.
Got it. All right. How about any of those others? Training on post-event inspection prioritization? Is that something partner with VDEM on that kind of thing?
Yeah, we certainly could. Yeah.
Okay. Greene County, we talked about that. Louisa County, I've got backup generators for shelters and critical facilities, training on hazard mitigation for building inspectors and code officials. That one keeps coming up. And I think in talking with Isabella, it sounded like folks really want more examples, more best practices on what sorts of hazard mitigation actions would work in this region. And so very specific help for the planning process so that you can help see what works and what doesn't work. And then Louisa County also had high water marks on bridges and a very specific dam repair, Bowler's Mill Dam, upstream of historic Green Springs area. Oh, this was one I had a definite question on. The Green Springs area, is that a historic district? Is it buildings or is it just a place name?
The area in general is part of the National Historic Registry. So it's
okay.
The area itself, which includes some old buildings. But for the most part, it's the Green Springs district.
Okay. This one rose to a very high level for me just because I think it's something that both DCR and Department of Historic Resources would both be interested in. So this one seemed to me like a very good state action. All right. I had one for Louisa. I'm going to take one more minute here, Isabella. Louisa, I've got backup or upgrade generators for the town hall. Is that, and then it could then serve as a shelter. Is it in the floodplain?
I've
Anybody?
got the plan. Which town hall was it?
This was Louisa.
There is the town hall is not in the floodplain, but a decent portion of the town is within the 100-year
Okay.
floodplain area.
Okay. All right, I think that one I'll put in with my generator list. And then Nelson County, I had training for building inspectors on hazard mitigation, so we've tackled that one. I've got Firewise workshops, maybe with with Department of Forestry, and I've got information to folks in areas prone to landslides. I thought that one might be a good one to partner with Virginia Energy on, because they're doing they're currently working on an inventory. I think they've already finished it, actually, an improved inventory of landslides, a catalog of previous landslides. So that might be something to partner with the state on. Do those sound good to the Nelson County folks? We have Nelson County on.
I'm sorry, my phone was ringing. Can you repeat that question?
I've got 3 for Nelson County, but 2 I think are most important. One is the training for building inspectors on hazard mitigation. I think we've already got that in the plan. And then Firewise workshops, maybe with Department of Forestry. And the final one that I think would be a good partnership with Virginia Energy is information to folks in areas prone to landslides, because they're cataloging those currently.
Yeah, those are important. We also had another one that was added to the plan late for
Okay.
generator upgrades to the fire station.
All right.
That one-
Which
Go ahead.
which fire station?
Actually, there's multiples because we use them as shelter locations, but
Gotcha.
I think we had a total of 7 buildings in the plan. I can pull that up here in just a second. But
Okay.
currently that's bogged down in FEMA right now. We submitted the grant March of last year, and it's still being held up by FEMA. It's gone through VDEM, but
Okay. I wish I could wave a magic wand for you, but it sounds like it's high priority. So I will at least put it in the state plan and cross my fingers for you. I hope that goes well. I think that's all I have. Thank you for the time, everybody. I'll stay on the line for a little while longer here as you go through your annual update process. Thanks again.
Thank you, Lee. Looks like we have just one more question.
Can I just
Okay.
add Albemarle County to the interest in Firewise classes being offered to the community?
Okay.
And in general, I think some connection between Department of Forestry and VDEM would be useful, or, it's my understanding the state is considering a fall burn ban, and Region 7's already implemented it. We're considering it locally, or we're talking about it, I should say. We're considering it because it hasn't gotten to the legislators yet, but we've been talking about it, and that's one that I think statewide would be of interest.
Okay. I got it.
And one more from John.
I think it'd be a quick question. In your one of the other questions, I think it was question 3 referenced, but in my mind was saying a list of local critical infrastructure that exists at the state level. And I wondered if we could get that on list. I'm not sure if I've seen that. I don't think so.
Yeah, well, that's a loaded question. I think the state has a critical infrastructure task force right now that's working on that. That critical infrastructure task force is extending to local infrastructure as well. I'm working with my team now to try to nail down the state asset list to a critical list, because not all assets are critical, obviously. So we're trying to narrow that down as we speak. So yeah, I had hoped to have that list to everybody when I was going around and doing these interviews, but I realized I needed to get the interviews started before the list could actually be generated and approved. So so pardon my vague answer to that, but it's coming.
Thank you.
And then as far as follow-up, Lee, I know there's a few questions that localities may want to provide more clearly defined locations for. And then you had also mentioned the state working group is growing to include more local stakeholders. So I guess people, if they're interested, can follow up with you if they have any, interest in being involved.
Yeah, definitely. What was the last thing you said?
Just being involved in the enhanced plan update.
Yeah, so the process is a fairly short one because the FEMA review is a fairly long one. So the process for putting together this plan, we started in February. We are working on it hardcore now. We hope to have 2 meetings in January and February of 2025. If anyone is interested in serving on that, we definitely need some more representation from local emergency managers. Not everybody and not everybody from all one region, but if you have 1 or 2 people who might be interested, the meetings will be in January and February. There'll be 1 virtual meeting in January and 1 in-person meeting in the Richmond area in February. I hope that one will have a virtual option as well, but I'm really encouraging everyone to attend if possible, because that'll be the main workshop for putting together the actual mitigation actions to go in the plan. So it's not a huge lift. We would then ask for some help reviewing the plan as well, but really it's just 2 big meetings. So thanks for that reminder, Isabella. I forgot about that point.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, great. Sure. Could you turn off the notifications on the phone for me? All right.
I will put my I'm going to put my email address in the chat here so you all have it.
Thank you, Lee, and I'll share that to follow up. Alrighty. Make sure I'm sharing screen. I think most of you all were involved in last year's hazard mitigation annual working group meeting and involved in the 2023 hazard mitigation plan, but I know we have a few new folks involved. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of why we are here today. Ruth is helping me turn off our notifications so we won't be interrupted again. And then I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, Ruth. So part of the statutory requirements for the regional hazard mitigation plan involves a method for plan maintenance, which includes this annual meeting with representatives from all of our localities and stakeholders to the plan, like UVA and Rivanna authorities. And today we're going to look at the local natural hazard events that have happened since May of 2023. Look at any updates to your critical facilities. So this doesn't just have to be new developments or brand new buildings, but maybe new generators coming online, EOCs, things along those lines. And then we'd like to hear from each locality and stakeholder the grants that you've applied for related to hazard mitigation in the past year since May, and any awards that you've received and any that you're looking ahead to. And then I hope you all have had a chance to review the 2023 hazard mitigation plan and your locality's action items. And by no means do we need to go one by one and look at each one and any changes to it. But if there's significant changes to your mitigation actions, if things have been completed, if things are stalled in any way, that would be important information for us to note here in today's meeting. And as I mentioned, our last plan update occurred in 2023, and our next update will be 2028. And we are looking at when we'll be applying for the grant to begin the planning effort for the next update, but usually it's a 2 to 3 year process on our part. So we will just start today by looking at the risk assessment. So that's our review of natural hazards over the past year. I'm sure most of these events are going to be regional, but if there's anything of local significance, feel free to shout that out. And of course, I can think of some, but I'm here today to hear from you all. So please feel free to share. We could just go around the room. Feel free to call it out.
Last summer smoke, right?
Yeah. And speak to any impacts that you had in your locality due to those events. What was response like?
We had a challenge with who makes the decision about issuing warnings and stuff because it doesn't fall under the. So our legal team at the county weighed in and thought it was within the fire code officials' purview to come out and make statements and adjust our local burn ordinance around that because of the conditions, but then, in an after action kind of review that we realized that that's probably not within our, it doesn't fall under this. So there's a little bit of a legislative gap around who can actually, and the health department said, well, we wouldn't regulate your, because we're a regional health department. So it was a little bit of a loophole there, but.
Definitely worth noting, yeah. Did anywhere else face a similar issue when the wildfire smoke occurred?
I mean, in Charlottesville, it's the same as in Albemarle, but we really didn't see an uptick in response. I don't think very much. So we try to put out as many public announcements as we could.
Yeah.
This is Sunny from the ECC. I just wanted to add that it's not directly related to your question, but it is on the subject of the wildland fires. Just wanted to mention that we did see impacts with constraints within our critical infrastructure, specifically our 911 center lacked capacity to be able to handle what was even, I would consider, although it was high impact for those that were directly affected, it was a moderate scale event for our region, but we saw almost inability to handle all the 911 calls. So that shows that we are undersized for the region, and that's something that we're mitigating now.
I was going to say, this is Chris from Louisa County, and we had a similar situation. So with the wildfires, we had some evacuations and we had a lot of calls coming in. Very similar situation. People didn't know who to call about where the fires were in evacuations. So they were calling dispatch. So same thing. We were lucky we had a volunteer force of chaplains that came in and kind of triaged some of the general questions. But that was something that it was pretty difficult for us to get squared away.
Greg, you were talking about the Canadian, right, the air quality, Canadian wildfires.
That's right.
But I think Chris is talking about what happened in March with the wildfires. And I was going to bring that up next and say that certainly was much more of a direct impact to local resources than, I mean, the Canadian wildfires had an impact as well, but our resources were certainly spread thin, chasing from the fire marshal's office, chasing down those reports, but not to the same extent as what happened on March 20th.
Yeah, then just to add, this is Sunny again, just to add to that, to clarify, sorry, it's hard to hear some of the audio in the room. My comments were specific to the wildland fire outbreak and not the smoke from the Canadian wildfires that happened earlier in the year.
Thanks for clarifying. And just as a note, these are the speakers. So when you're speaking, if you can kind of just lean in towards them, that might help the people that are online. Any other disasters like flooding events, COVID still impacting the region? There's a hand raised. Feel free to share.
So this is Jennifer Whitaker with the Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority. I apologize for my tardiness. Two things we had, several things actually we had this year. One is the wildfires. We did have a piece of infrastructure impacted by the wildfires up on Piney Mountain. And we had some challenges assessing the condition of that infrastructure while the wildfires were ongoing. So probably some coordination that needs to happen there. We also had a water release event at one of the dams that highlighted some issues for us. And then we did have a flooding infrastructure resiliency issue at one of our major wastewater pump stations.
That was January, right?
Oh, yes, January
Yeah.
2024, the month that will not go away.
All right, if we don't have any other natural hazards,
Sorry, I got one more I was writing. Jogged my memory when you mentioned last summer, the only other thing I can think of was there was some heat, I think it was last summer, we had some heat wave related activity. Probably more so that the city opened up some stuff as a matter of course, and the county did a few things, but that's a little outside of what we normally do. So it was more like we let people into the parks for free so that they could take advantage of the lakes, that kind of thing. But that there was some messaging and some other things that we put out in conjunction with the city.
was this the first year that, was it cooling shelters? I forget what they were
But they've been
described.
used before.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've been used before.
But we expect that the frequency is likely going to go up and that there may need to be additional sites.
Right.
Wasn't there an impact on the power? Wasn't there a? Yeah, not a brownout, but I felt like I remember there was I can't recall exactly, but there was a period where we were running power outages because of the impact on the grid. And I can't- Maybe
I wonder if that was that. Remember we did that work with the citizen that was concerned about some impacts relative to the grid. Maybe that's.
No, I know that there was a group that was bringing that up for the winter. Worried about that they were worried about that the grid wasn't able to, that was, yeah, it wasn't resilient enough for, should we be running all of this? But that was, I think that was winter, wasn't that?
Yeah, that was like in January. Yeah, it was with gas lines.
No, I thought I remembered there was a period where, but Lord knows it could be a movie gas on here.
For the county, though, we have not, I can't say that we've never, but last year, I believe we did, nor the year before. The year before, I think it was a bit worse, but like opening up a cooling center is not something that we've done. Warming centers, yes. But I foresee that could change. As of yet, we've done the parks thing, and then we've listed public areas that you could go before we leave the mall, in the Pastor Mall. But our libraries, things, we've done some stuff like that. But you don't have a facility like what you all have, I think, right? Where you typically.
Yeah, and so that's one of the locations. But we also rely on like youth and libraries and things like that. So.
I mean, we've heard people get on the bus.
Yeah.
It's cold outside as well. We had a cold snap in December. Spoke with Kat and they said they were some of the unhoused, continue to ride instead of get off and get on. So.
As part of our annual report for the hazard mitigation plan, if you all have any like post-storm or post-event related reports, and like if there's upticks of hospital events or 911 calls, that would be good information for us to have in our files for incorporation into the next plan update. So please send those along following today's meeting if you have access to those. And feel free to send any other events that come to mind via email. But we'll move on to changes to any critical facilities, development in the area. So this could be development that might be impacted by natural disasters in the future, not just the critical facilities that help us manage that. So roadways, hospitals, things along those lines. And it can also be expansions to like your fire stations.
So from the city aspect, we do have a new fire station under construction. I think with the 2025 open date, it's replacing the fire station on 250.
Okay.
As far as critical infrastructure, we were awarded a grant last year, the shelter upgrade grant to replace generators at Charlottesville High School. We're kind of using that as our primary shelter right now. We've increased capacity from, I believe, 250 kilowatts to just around 800. That should power the majority of the school, all the gyms. And previously they didn't have power to the kitchens or to the locker room area, so now they will. So that's kind of what that I know about in the city right now.
Great.
Louisa County, we just opened the New Bridge Station 8, which is on 208. That opened in June of last year.
Thank you.
From Greene County. In reference to the critical facilities, we did get awarded 3 generators through grants. The grants, a new generator for the 911 center, a new generator for the county administration that will run the entire building, and a generator for Dyke Volunteer Fire Company. And once the generator is placed at Dyke, that facility will be utilized as a Red Cross shelter as well.
Great. What grant was that?
I believe it was HMG. I believe those were, but I can double check for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Was that this past year or was that 2 years ago?
Yes. They did upgrade and add to the North Garden Fire Station, not yet, I don't know exactly.
And
remember what
it's solar on it.
Could have been this last year or maybe the year before, but yeah.
And what was that, Crystal?
North Garden Fire Station got an expansion and there's a
They got
solar.
solar on the
Oh,
roof.
and solar. Okay.
I'm telling you about your facilities.
John, what about the Fashion Square Mall site?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we did add, we're leasing space, so that does add what I would, for us is a critical infrastructure piece, yeah, so. We have a public safety operations center, police and fire rescue sharing space that's leased to the old JCPenney site. That is to directly support daily operations for us. It's complete maintenance, repair, emergency repairs.
Logistics, all of them.
Logistics, all of our equipment and stuff. As we spin up to handle the situation, they manage all of that. Supply folks. So,
It's soon to be our pharmacy,
that's
our
right.
centralized pharmacy, so that will be a critical infrastructure. It
Yeah.
is. I mean, it already is.
What does the pharmacy serve? Just like staff?
The state should change their regs, and now we have to, basically, every fire department to build out their own pharmacy.
For the ambulances,
Okay.
not for staff.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Supply
So
folks.
to restock ambulances, we can no longer get our stuff from the hospital like we used to. They do a drug box exchange in the hospitals. It's a heavy lift. I don't know how smaller localities are gonna manage that.
For Green, are there any updates? Oh, I see a hand raised. Feel free to share.
Yeah, this is Debbie from Savannah County. Just wanted to let you know that we did get the emergency shelter upgrade assistance grant, and we'll be putting our community center on a full building generator, hopefully by the end of the year, as a backup shelter and cooling station, whatever we need it for.
Great, thank you. And sorry, I just noticed I got Green. My mistake. So Green, Flavanna, Louisa, Nelson County, do you have any updates? Or UVA? Or Ravenna?
For Rivanna, we've got our 2 largest water treatment plants expanded both this year. So we've got a pretty significant increase in water supply treatment capacity. And we've gotten grants for generator at Scottsville wastewater treatment plant. We have applied for a flood resiliency assessment grant. The irony is not lost on me. We've gotten about $2 million from NRCS for upgrade of Beaver Creek Dam. And we're working towards, we think, about $17 million in addition. We've also applied for the $50 million grant for the South Ravenna to Ragged Mountain Pipeline project, which will be a pretty significant resiliency redundancy project for us. We're also looking at several other generator grant programs to replace some aging generators. And then we'll also be looking for funding on a dam water release siren system throughout the county.
Thank you. And UVA and Nelson, have anything to add? Otherwise, feel free to share any updates you have via email. Okay. And then I just wanted to share a few related tools in places where you may look for information as you undergo risk assessments, and also wanted to invite you all to share any data sources that you found useful that might help others in the region. Of course, there's the National Risk Index from FEMA. The Chesapeake Bay Partnership has recently released an update to the Chesapeake Bay Land Use Land Cover data set, which has 1 meter resolution information on types of land use and land cover, so you can see changes to development and vegetation. There's the CDC Social Vulnerability Index. I don't know if there's others that you all are using frequently that you found helpful in your work. And Peter or anyone else from VDEM, feel free to share resources here as well.
Good afternoon, this is Peter. So with this, we can definitely help in the planning process as things go forward. And of course, as everybody's aware, sorry, there's a bit of an echo. Let me turn the volume down a little bit. There is a side-by-side comparison tool. So you guys managed to, on your last plan iteration, you guys managed to go in there under the older guidance. So I did want to bring this up a little bit. There is a side-by-side comparison tool as we go through the new planning cycle. Granted, we have a little bit of time between now and then, which is awesome. So there are some slight changes. It's by the time it comes around, it's really not going to be all that I guess out of the ordinary, if you will. There are some things that to look at for the HHPD items. One of the biggest confusing items when I was going through some previous plans and hazard mitigation plan updates with some of the other PDCs, we were under the impression at that time, some months back, that for HHPD stuff, everybody had to be in compliance with. You just had to do it. So thankfully, that information was, I guess, was corrected. And not everybody has to go through the HHPD stuff if you don't want to. But the cool thing about the HHPD things is that when you're going through it, if you're all in compliance with that HHPD stuff, it really opens up some additional grant opportunities. That's the biggest thing behind that. But are there any questions from the group for me? It's good to see some familiar faces in here, which is great.
Wait, sorry, Peter, you're kind of fading out. Could you repeat
Sure,
that? And maybe just tell everyone your role at VDEM for context.
Sure. Sorry. So really good to see some very familiar faces in the room here. And as far as my role, I'm a hazard mitigation, or excuse me, I'm an all hazards planner for VDEM, which I'm sure most of you guys are all pretty aware of already. Also in here in our meeting is Sean Peavy. He's VDEM Region 2's all hazards planner. So I invited him late. I noticed late that he was not in the meeting, so my apologies for that, and I do apologize to Sean for not forwarding this prior to. So your PDC hovers over top of two VDEM regions, so VDEM Region 3 and VDEM Region 2. So my job as a planner is as you guys work through your planning processes, and that gets once the PDC finalizes everything on their end, they will send it to the VDEM planners and myself and Sean. When it comes time, we will review the plan and send feedback to the PDC if anything needs to get updated, if you will. And then once things are good to go, we will then forward everything to FEMA for their review. That is the I guess in the most basic of terms what I do with VDEM as it relates to the PDC.
Thank you, Peter. And if anyone has any questions for him, you can ask them now, but he'll also be, he's on the email and CC'd, so you have access to his contact.
Our last plan was written on the 2011 standard, I guess, is that right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now
so.
the next one is the area, okay.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think the requirements changed like a month after we had gotten all the resolutions passed. So more related to social vulnerability, more community engagement, more climate integrated into the plans for future. And so speaking to that, just as we continue planning efforts related to hazard mitigation, even though we're not really engaged in the plan update right now, being sure that you're looking to your comprehensive plans, land use plans. I know there's been a lot of updates to climate adaptation plans in Charlottesville and Albemarle, working closely with that staff there, and also looking to your infrastructure plans like your transportation network. A lot's been happening with broadband and updates to our communication system. So just a reminder to keep those resources in mind.
I have one more thing about data.
Yeah.
Before we move on. Albemarle County and City of Charlottesville are working on our climate resilience planning, obviously together. And we're pursuing some data from this company called First Street or Risk Factor. I see them in the news like all the time anymore, so they're doing a really good job of marketing themselves. But so the data they have available includes like flood data, heat mapping, air quality or smoke, fire risk. Is there one more? Wind. So this company, they kind of started as a nonprofit, but I think they've gone into like profit mode. But they worked with a lot of like academics and scientists to first develop some high quality flood data, not only for yesterday's climate, but also looking out to work into their models climate change, increased intensity of storms and so forth. So they have data that we consider to be much more refined than you will find from FEMA or NOAA or somebody like that on local flooding, even in much smaller channels than you would see for like a 100-year FEMA floodplain. So I understand the data is like imperfect because it's modeled, but it's the best data that we've found to be out there for not just flood, but all these other perils, as they call them as well. I think they do a lot of work with insurance companies to inform them on the risks of the properties that insurance companies insure. So it's becoming more widely used, I think. I think the city of Philadelphia, for instance, uses their data. I think the entire state of South Carolina has bought data from them. Anyway,
It's like a great resource. Yeah. Thank you.
It's the best data that we found.
Yeah. So probably a year in advance, but kind of going back to changes to critical facilities and land use. Might be worth mentioning that the county's purchased several acres to allow the expansion of the transportation and the facility. We're in the process of including a rezoning that will allow either the base or private industry to deliver to the base to expand. So it's increasing by the area and that facility will be increasing in size. None of that's transpired yet. Next year this time will be reported about
Yeah, good to have on the radar. Definitely applicable. Thank you. Yeah.
The other tool that a lot of the federal agencies are pointing people to is called EJ screening. Right, so that's I think an important one. And the city got a small grant from the National Park Service to try and do what we call develop hyperlocal demographics. Because a lot of times when we simply look at census tract, it's too broad of a sweep. And so we're trying to establish a data-driven sort of narrative around whether it's, a lot of it is going to be to make a compelling case for grant applications that want you to identify your vulnerable or disadvantaged communities, but do it with data set, like a compilation of data sets. We should have that done by the end of the year. And then the other tool that a lot of folks have known about is called MARISA, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Integrated Sciences and Assessments. It's a big collaboration that is using climate change driven scenarios. So it's got some projection opportunities that would be good to look at.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I think that's the last one, yeah.
But I'll just add, we, in the county of fire rescue, we're going to be pursuing accreditation, which we've never done, and we hired Brandon to be leading the community risk assessment portion of that, and that will likely involve holding in a lot of the work that's been done already in the area of this plan and other plans. So we don't have to reinvent some of that, that work.
Absolutely.
It just struck me that in this next iteration, and maybe more so the iteration after that, what will AI do in terms of these tools and how we might use them and how we might assess risk? I have no idea what that would mean, but it seems like it probably would mean something. Just throw it out there.
Yeah.
See what it does.
Definitely. Okay, thank you, everyone. So this is kind of the bulk of what we're going to be tackling for the rest of, sorry, did someone chime in? Okay. For the rest of the meeting, but it's really important that we hear from each locality and each stakeholder on your updates to your mitigation strategy, your action items that were included in the last hazard mitigation plan. So I'll just call you out, starting with Albemarle, because you're at the front of the alphabet. But yeah, again, it doesn't need to be an exhaustive list of each action item, but just the major changes and progress that's occurred.
So I'm happy to start. There's a number of folks with perspectives in here that might be able to speak to what's working well, perhaps maybe what's not. But from an emergency management perspective, most of this seems to be moving forward in some shape or form with a very general statement about some very general goals listed here. But one that's stuck out to me is I don't anticipate us making any progress on in this cycle, though it's listed here, is the development of a debris management plan. That's currently not on the radar for the next several years, and so I don't anticipate us making progress on that, barring some change.
We are in the process of hiring a new term contractor for debris management during emergencies.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
Just that. I mean, it's not a planning process, but it's just like having a contractor on board when a disaster happens to manage all the chaos, the debris and trash and stuff. Do you want to get involved with that?
Not necessarily, but is that gonna, so that will translate into a debris management plan?
No, it's just a hauling contractor kind of person.
Yeah.
What's that?
The guy with the truck.
Yeah. Kai in FES is leading that. If you
I was
want
going
to.
to say, I think I feel it's something.
Yeah.
That's why I said I think it's.
Okay.
There's
So
maybe more.
I'll follow up with him, yeah, and see if they plan on, if they could include it, if they could include having it be a
Probably a
plan.
different kind of contractor that, I don't think the contractor we would hire would be able to prepare a plan. I think they're just like a guy with a truck. Or lots of trucks.
So it may be worth looping in Phil McCaleb's the director of Ravenna Solid Waste Authority. They have done a fair amount of debris management work for the county historically, and are going to be a pretty major resource on vegetative debris management during an event. So maybe worth looping him in.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. I did suggest to Kai that he reach out to somebody at Rivanna. Philip would be the logical person. And I suggested he reach out to fire rescue as well, and maybe he hasn't yet.
Okay, great. Was that the only mitigation action that was of note for you all?
Oh, I was going down the list and saw like riparian buffer protection enhancements, and I don't know. I mean, Scott Clark at the county and others are working on.
That's in process.
David, do you want to update?
I don't have much knowledge to update, but we're in some process, so that is something that we're working on. It should be updated.
So what's happening is the protection is being moved from the water protection ordinance to the zoning ordinance. And that shift will actually cause the enforcement to happen everywhere throughout the county and not just riparian impacts related to development. So it basically allows the county to prohibit clearing of riparian areas by anybody who has a riparian area on their property and not just a land developer.
Greg, I would say that all the work with that technical systems program, is significant.
Yeah, we've done quite a lot of work in the last year related to dam safety. There's a long list that maybe I could just provide to you via email or something like that.
That'd be great.
And then, Gabe, I don't know if you want to talk about just climate resilience planning, which touches on a few of the actions in the hazard mitigation plan.
Sure, I mean, well, and my apologies for not reading the hazard. I actually have a giant calendar block on my schedule tomorrow to read the hazard mitigation plan, along with a couple of others related to some meetings next week. So I can't speak to specific kind of tie-ins, but the Resilience Together project that the city, county, and UVA are co-leading together in for our area. I think our part of our work is to make sure that we're building on the hazard mitigation plan, not reinventing the wheel, but like taking what's there. If there's elements to go further with or flesh out in greater detail of specific kind of projects that can help to implement the higher level strategies. That's one of the big areas that we're working on from the climate resilience planning perspective. And then I think, part of it too is that project is maybe perhaps more community facing. And so I think we're seeing, we're looking at how the process itself can help to kind of foster, stronger relationships between local government and the community, among different community organizations. And so that there's some resilience building in the process of also doing another plan that will help us apply for direct money to do projects.
Wonderful. I think, yeah.
No, no.
I was thinking of two different new things, but is this, you were going to mention what?
Solar. We're
the solar ordinance?
updating our solar ordinance, which would address kind of reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So
yeah,
that is, they are permitted now, but the ordinance is making it more accessible, generally more permissible.
I was going to ask Gabe to also mention the vision for like the Yancey Community Center as kind of like a resilience hub. We're applying for, I think, a grant.
Yeah, I need so
that connects to one of the action items as well.
We had some, we had a local group of architects in a continuing education class associated with Virginia AIA last year do like a pro bono project for us to essentially create like a model for what climate resilience hub community resilience hub could look like. And then make kind of modular recommendations that could be almost like a menu of options or a menu of things that can help, a library or community center become a fuller resilience hub. And that you could sort of pick from that menu the most appropriate improvements to make given the facility that you have under consideration, because any facility is going to be different, right? Some are going to be stronger in one area, weaker in another area. And so this is kind of like a menu of various like modular recommendations and improvements that range from like building facility, actual capital improvements to like programmatic events that happen at the facility and other kinds of uses. And so we're planning to apply for a grant pending a couple of sort of making sure that we're eligible for, given some of the restrictions of what a EPA grant. We'd like to apply for some funds to do this first with making some improvements to Yancey Community Center in Southern Albemarle, which has a very strong programmatic element in terms of community resilience in that area. But there are some improvements that we could make to the facility that the program coordinator there is interested in, that folks in fire rescue are interested in. And so that's some work that we're hoping to do this year, building on some kind of conceptual work that was done last year.
Really exciting work. And I would just echo that for the next plan update, having as much overlap between the climate resiliency plans and the hazard mitigation plan would probably be of benefit as more and more grant opportunities are becoming available, and having them listed as mitigation action items is a qualifier for most of the FEMA grants. But let's just, for the sake of time, feel free to email me any other updates, but let's move on to Charlottesville because we've got about 13 minutes left.
Yeah, a couple of things I'll go, and then I'll leave a bunch of things to Jeremy. We completed the flood resilience plan. That was a DCR grant, and it has been approved by DCR. So that would make us eligible to pursue Community Flood Preparedness Fund implementation dollars. The climate adaptation work is in progress. There's a couple duplicates also I noticed. We continue to do incentives for low flow or water conservation appliances. There's one in here, I think it's CM, you can tell the number of CMI1. It says build or repair roadway and pedestrian crossing so it's not to impede floodwaters. There's a pedestrian bridge or pedestrian crossing over Paulus Branch that is going to go into construction. That is right near the South First Street public housing.
Aren't you putting one over Meadow Creek too?
Okay. And then for CLI2, which talks about reduced pollution discharge to and erosive conditions in receiving waters. We just finished a stream restoration of a tributary of Shanks Branch it's in the area that's being operated by the Botanical Gardens of the Piedmont. So this was one of the features in that master plan. I think those are probably the updates.
I don't have a whole lot more than that, other than thinking around a debris management plan. So that might be something we can talk to the county about. I've found a contractor that can do permitting, can do pretty much everything. It just depends on the level of the disaster. We have something kind of locally kind of on file with procurement. We have a few places designated for debris sites. But all that's still trying to come together. So, but that's kind of what I'm working on in emergency management. I can't think of anything else that.
Yeah, we have historically had need to store vegetative debris. And so we have two sites that had previously been approved by DEQ and I think are approvable. But we don't have a built out management plan. And then it just made me think, we did go after a grant to try and do deep energy improvements in solar on the high school, but we weren't successful with that. And we're currently, Friday, putting another grant together to tackle energy improvements and solar on K-Tech. And so both of those would be, some of those we're thinking of as potential future sites for emergency, but that's not the driving goal of the applications.
Are there any other grants that were applied for in the past year related?
Well, it's maybe not related, but we found out today that we got EPA's clean school bus rebate for to convert two diesel buses to.
Congratulations. So exciting.
To diesel to electric.
To electric.
Yep.
Oh.
Like new buses, not right, not converting, right?
Yeah.
Replacing.
That's great news. Any grants on your end? Okay. Okay, no worries. Fluvanna, do you have any updates for us on your mitigation actions, Fluvanna?
I gave you the grant one that we have going on. I don't know if Mr. Fortune has anything on the planning side. Yeah.
Not at this time, no.
Okay, if that changes after taking a look at the mitigation actions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll be doing a write-up of what we've gathered from each locality just for your verification and in case there's anything to add. So feel free to provide any additional comments then. Okay, Green.
Yes, ma'am. So we talked about Dyke Fire Department and getting that and bringing them online there. Enhancing public safety communications. We're in the process of a new radio system. All of our towers are up at this point and we're scheduled to start testing in July or August. We continuously work with the schools on their plans. Our CERT classes are held once or twice a year. We have actually a very active CERT here in Greene. Our Greene County Water and Sewer folks are inspecting and logging all hydrants. That was some information that we were not able to obtain from RSA transition, were the locations and numbers of the fire hydrants that we had in the county. So our new water and sewer department is doing a good job at getting that information for us. Staffing has increased as far as our trained responders in the EMS department. Our 3 volunteer fire departments have slight increases in membership. Let's see, trying to go through here as quick as possible. I'm sorry. We did have a grant for recruit retention. The individual that we hired for that position unfortunately had to resign to health issues. So we're still trying to figure out how we're going to proceed with that grant. We talked about VDOT with the bridges and signage. We do officially have a public information officer now in the county. She is amazing. She's also the grant writer for the county. She is utilizing social media and our Civic Ready program to reach out to the community in ways that we have not done before. And with that, I will let Jim, who is our Director of Planning and Zoning, Deputy County Administrator, fill in anything on water and broadband.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks. Jim, are you still on here? Okay, I guess not. So instead of me messing up both those, we'll send you an email update on water and broadband for the county.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then Nelson, Louisa.
Yeah, so in Louisa, we have recently adopted the public facilities chapter of our comprehensive plan. So that should help with public safety and different impacts from developers that are trying to obtain, CUPs. And then for grants, we have applied for a SAFER grant to increase the number of trained emergency responders. And if anything else comes up from other staff, we'll just shoot you an email.
Okay, great. Admit him. I already did there. Oh, okay. Oh, you did. Sorry. Okay. Alrighty, Nelson County, we're just looking for an update on your mitigation strategy and any action items.
Okay, we're still working on the upgrades to the generators, so we're at a standstill on that. The building and officials part, I have not talked to them, so I'm not sure where they're at in their strategy. A couple other things, we're working on the sheltering plans and specifically working with the animal control to be able to provide pet-friendly shelters. So we're looking at probably doing grants for that to try to buy the equipment and infrastructure stuff we're going to need for that.
Thank you. UVA?
I don't have anything from a facility standpoint.
Okay.
I'm not sure if John.
And I think Shane joined as well. I know you don't have definite mitigation strategies in the plan, but just any updates that might be applicable here. Okay. And then Rivanna?
On most of ours are under Albemarle County, but AHI1, the implementation of the community water supply plan, we've got the treatment plants all being completed as we speak. We plan to bid the Ragged to Observatory pipeline by the end of the summer. And we are designing the South Ravanna to Ragged pipeline now, as well as the raise at Ragged Mountain. And we will be bidding the Central Water Line before the end of the year as well. As far as, and then AHD2, we're looking at system failure mitigation. We're doing a fair number of root cause analysis activities on both the water and wastewater side right now. And then we're doing mitigation work on both the dams, particularly Sugar Hollow Dam, and mitigation work on the sewer collection system for the Rivanna pump station side. And we've been working extensively with the emergency operations folks at both the city and the county in response to those events this year. And then we are doing some physical security upgrades under AMI3, cameras, fencing, lighting, new entrance gates, etc.
Okay. Great, thank you so much. And it looks like we've gotten through about everything. So unless there's any other questions or anything else anyone would like to add, I'll follow up with each locality and stakeholder with just a report out of what our findings were for today. And feel free to add any comments or suggestions. And I'd love to hear your feedback on the hazard mitigation plan after you have the chance to review it. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Can I ask a general question?
Yeah.
Is this like the main mechanism for sort of updating the plan or, providing an update on the action items? Is this kind of like the formal process for doing that? And
yeah, it's kind of our way of undergoing the plan maintenance. And I would say this more so feeds into the narrative of the hazard mitigation plan and understanding of local capacity. What are the biggest hazards that are affecting your region? And then just making sure there's continuity of making sure the mitigation action items are moving forward and that there's an understanding of what may be causing roadblocks. But definitely as we undergo the plan update itself, there's a lot more frequent meetings and kind of working groups built around updating your mitigation strategy. So this is a pretty high level overview. But once we get into the plan update, it will be a lot more detailed.
okay. So a follow-up email to kind of go into a little bit more detail about some of the things that we've spoke to and some of the things we may have missed is probably a good way to kind of like make it a little bit more all-encompassing then, because we've missed a lot of stuff, So an email to you guys is like the best way at this point to kind of convey that information to you.
Yeah, I would say so. And just to repeat again, if there's any storm reports or reports from the hospitals that you all could provide following any events, that would be helpful information. As specific as possible is always helpful. For sure, but thank you all so much. This
And
concludes the 2024 annual meeting. Oh, there's one hand raised. Sorry about that.
Hey, everybody. This is Sean Peavy, the VDEM Region 2 All Hazards Planner. I just wanted to bring up, we've had an issue in some of the other PDCs, and I want to make sure that it got brought up to this one as well. If you are going to be putting in for any grants that are not currently tied to any mitigation efforts ongoing, you can make an addendum to what we currently have in the plan and get that promulgated and then brought forward, so that way you can go ahead and apply for those grants in the future. I believe we just had one in King George County who they had to go through this process. And from the state perspective, we can look at those on off cycle. So it's not having to wait for that next plan year to come through, or next 5 years in this case, to really work through those situations. So if you do have something and you're looking at a grant that it has not been addressed yet, just by all means, please reach out to Peter or myself, whoever your respected planner is, and we can walk you through that process to make sure you're getting taken care of. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean. And yeah, thanks for mentioning that. We actually have done that once in this plan cycle with Rivanna. So we've been through that. It's not too difficult, just a few resolutions. And then Sunny?
yeah, so just a quick question on timeline. What is your timeline for additional inputs for this?
Additional input. I'll send a follow-up email with what I've gathered probably in the next week and a half. And I'll give you a deadline then, but I can give you 2 weeks. There's no deadline that we're waiting on here.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks again for the discussion.